I've just released a new update for my free Blender Compositing pack MP-Comp, which includes 15 new effects and a bunch of new features for existing nodes. To showcase some of these features and to also test them myself, I've created this little animation. I hope you enjoyed this little animation. It has been entirely animated, rendered and composited in Blender. For the music and sound design, I have used FL Studio. But let's move on to the contents of this update. This update added a few new film emulation effects, a new dedicated detail and clarity effect, an easier to use Lensflare, a lot of new utility node groups to make the creation of custom effects easier, and a lot of quality of life enhancements for existing effects. And maybe you noticed these colorful things in the animation. These actually are the new icons for the categories of MP-Comp. Each thumbnail of MP-Comp's node groups has been updated to include an overlay that indicates its category. This makes it a lot easier to visually separate and parse the different effects, and also looks more appealing in my opinion. Let's start with the film emulation effects like MP Film Grain Plus. This is a more advanced and realistic looking film grain, since unlike the previously existing film grain, it isn't just applying noise on top of the image. Instead, it reconstructs the input image using film grain to simulate the response of the film grain to different wavelengths of light. This way, the grain feels more authentic and shares some characteristics of real film grain, like how it is distributed and how dense it is, depending on the image's colors and brightness. It also simulates silver halide clumping, as due to physical imperfections, real film grain can have some spots where the grain is denser than in others. It also includes film damage simulation, which will randomly add black and white spots on some frames. The node group also features a lot of adjustable inputs to change the distribution of grain on the highlights, midtones and shadows individually, and also lets you easily switch between an animated and a still mode. Next we have MP_film color, which is essentially using Blender's color balance node with a bunch of math, so you can quickly create more cinematic looking colors with just a few sliders. The crucial components here are the split tone, which lets you tint the highlights and shadows of an image in complementary colors, and the control over the brightness of the shadows and highlights. And by combining both of these node groups and adding several other effects, I've created MP_film look. This effect is inspired by DaVinci Resolve's film look creator and lets you quickly apply pretty much all the characteristics of film you could ask for. This includes the before mentioned film grain, film damage and split tone, but also film gate, which will add an adjustable frame to your footage, and gate weave, which will randomly slightly offset the image. It also includes film emulation effects from previous MP-Comp versions like vignetting, halation and flickering. It's a very customizable node group while still being user-friendly by simply letting you toggle the different effects, so you have an easier time to identify what an effect does and adjust them accordingly. There's also another new emulation effect known from a different era than film. MP_pseudo-JPEG will render your image with adjustable compression artifacts known from JPEG images. Under the hood, this node group is a balance of using the same math as JPEG's compression algorithm and improvised more artistic solutions to get the look right. And this is reflecting in the results and usage of MP_pseudo-JPEG. Depending on the settings, results can either look fairly accurate or stylized. All you have to do is to adjust the quality slider of the effect and toggle the different processing steps of the effect. It also has two more sliders to add errors to the chroma channels, which will make some chunks of the image become over or unsaturated. A big part of the update includes a lot of node setups, which I've turned into their own node groups, as I noticed how frequently I use them or wished that they would exist. By the way, I've started a tutorial series for Blender's Compositor, which in the future will also include a tutorial for creating your own custom effects. Each video of the series features a unique project and can be watched on their own, so you don't have to wait for the next video to release to finally finish the tutorial. Though due to health-related issues, it will take a lot of time for the next tutorials to release, as they require a lot of research and testing to be done that I won't be capable of doing within the next 2 months. So make sure to subscribe to not miss when they finally release. But getting back to the utility nodes, there's MP_value contrast, which works like a contrast slider but for mathematical values, so you can control the distance between the highest and lowest values of a float field. I've also created MP_value visualizer, which will output a float value as text on your screen, so you can easily monitor the outputs of math nodes. And also MP_tonal mask, which lets you create masks for the shadows, midtones and highlights of an image. And if you ever experience your mask having a lot of lonely looking coarse pixels, you can now remove them using MP_despeckle mask. It also has an output for easy monitoring, where you will always see the input mask, but with all pixels the effect will remove, being displayed in red. In one of my previous MP-comp videos, I've asked the community whether they know of a setup to create my mirrored edges effect using vector math, as it would significantly increase the performance. And thanks to Artem, who reached out to me with a solution, this feature is actually in MP-comp now. By the way, Artem is very good at using geometry nodes and is currently working on an asset library for Blender that will add several node groups for creating and animating text with geometry nodes. His pack is currently in public beta and, just like MP-comp, uses a pay-what-you-want pricing that starts at $0. I will leave the link to the Gumroad page of it in the description, and also his Instagram and YouTube channel, so you don't miss out on any updates about his pack. But yes, thanks to Artem, you can now use a performance-friendlier mirror tiling effect, which I've also implemented into existing effects like MP_shake to speed up their render times. Speaking of vectors, I've also added MP_screen coordinates, which will output texture coordinates that will always fill out the entire screen. So you can craft procedural texture and vector math setups without having to rely on an input image. And if you want to create some procedural displacement maps, I've also added MP_make bidirectional, which will remap the values of a displacement map so that Blender's displace node will use it to displace an image in both directions of each axis instead of just one. I've also created a new Lensflare for MP-comp, which is highly customizable while still keeping the inputs at a minimum. This is achieved by using menus, where you can select presets for different elements of the Lensflare. And if you do want full control, you can set the menu to custom, which will expose the inputs that are otherwise controlled by the presets. Thanks to Drace from Blender for Artists for providing the nodes that are used to create the streaky hotspot of the flare, and thanks to CG on Fire for coming up with the initial node setup. By the way, it is planned that some node groups of MP-comp become part of Blender for Artists, which is a branch of Blender that focuses on making Blender more artist-friendly. Like I mentioned, a few nodes have been slightly reworked to expand their features and make them easier to use. For example, MP_Blur 3D is now able to apply its blur both on the foreground and the background of an image, instead of only blurring objects behind the selected focal point. The main node group for color correction of MP-comp, called MP_develop, now has the new detail and clarity effect implemented, which significantly improves its performance. And it now also features sliders to adjust the contrast linearly and apply a gamma correction. The denoising effect of it has also been reworked to do a better job at identifying the noise of the image, which increases the overall quality of the denoising. After using MP_RGB-split again recently, I found that it could be easier to use by having a slider to control the offset of all channels at once. So I've added that. The strength of different elements on mp_Lensflare can now be changed more conveniently through a dedicated panel that lists the opacity settings for all elements. And I also added a new bokeh spots with input, which lets you easily change the appearance of the bokeh spots. Also, some inputs now have different default values to get a better out-of-the-box experience. mp_LightLeaks has also received a lot of new features, including the ability to instantly apply the light leaks to an input image and choosing between the most relevant blend modes. I've also added a few new post-processing effects to it, which enable you to add a rainbow shine effect to the image. This is similar to another completely new effect, which I didn't mention yet. mp_ChromaGlow will add streaks and chromatic aberration to the highlights of your image, which can create a very interesting and appealing looking glow to your image. mp_comp is now also on GitHub. This means you can now report bugs or request features there, and if you have the know-how, can code some scripts that will make it easier for you to update mp_comp. I don't have much experience maintaining GitHub repositories, so I hope I won't do any fuck-ups. Let me know if some of my practices on GitHub make you pull your hair out so I can learn. And even though mp_comp can be downloaded for free, I hope that some of you decide to leave a donation. After all, it does require a lot of effort to do all of this, especially the little but tedious details like the animation, custom-made icons, and documentation. So if you decide to leave a donation, that would be very cool, preferably over Ko-fi as it charges the lowest fees. And if donations aren't your thing, you can also support me by purchasing the Blender add-ons for motion graphics, ProGraph and ProParticles over my affiliate link, so I get a provision for directing traffic to their products. Thanks to everyone out there who already decided to support me over donations and affiliate links. And if you don't have the goods to support mp_comp financially, it would be cool if you could recommend it to people whenever you see Blender's compositor being mentioned. I think a lot more people could make use of mp_comp if they would know that it exists. By the way, sorry for slacking on updating the documentation. As I mentioned, I have to care about some health-related issues, and the documentation is also pretty tedious to maintain and update. It will also take more time than usual to push another update when Blender 5.1 will release, but most of its compositor updates are just quality of life and performance updates anyway, so it will support this mp_comp version just fine. That was everything from my end. Like and hype the video if you want to, and submarine to my channel. Have a wonderful day. Bye.